On Christmas morning, my 12-year-old daughter opened a gym membership and a note, "Time to slim down." I made sure my ex-wife regretted every single word. Hey, Reddit. My ex-wife gave our 12-year-old daughter a gym membership and diet plan for Christmas, then called her chunky in front of the whole family. What followed was the most satisfying legal destruction I've ever witnessed. Buckle up because this one gets messy. I'm Jake, 34 male, and I've been divorced from Victoria for about 4 years now. The marriage lasted 8 years before it imploded spectacularly when I caught her having an affair with Kevin, this finance bro who worked at her company. Found out through the classic movie cliche. Came home early from a business trip and walked in on them. Spared you the details, but let's just say I didn't stick around for explanations. The divorce was brutal. She fought for primary custody of our daughter Sophie, 12 female now, was 8 at the time, not because she particularly wanted to be a parent, but because losing custody would make her look bad to her family and social circle. Victoria's always been obsessed with appearances. The right house, the right car, the right husband, the perfect Instagram-ready life. My lawyer Helen was a pit bull in a pantsuit. She'd been through her own nasty divorce and had zero patience for cheating spouses who played victim. We documented everything. The affair, Victoria's frequent business trips where she'd leave Sophie with babysitters for days, her habit of canceling custody weekends when something more interesting came up. The final custody arrangement gave me Sophie every other week, alternating holidays and summers. Not ideal, but better than the every other weekend setup Victoria's lawyer had pushed for. The judge made it clear that any parent consistently prioritizing their social life over their kid would find themselves back in court facing a custody modification. Those first few months post-divorce were rough. Sophie was 8 years old, confused about why mommy and daddy weren't together anymore, and I was trying to figure out how to be a single dad while processing my own anger and betrayal. But we figured it out. Movie nights became our thing. She'd pick the film, I'd make popcorn, and we'd camp out on the couch with blankets. I taught her to ride a bike without training wheels in our driveway, spending an entire Saturday running alongside her until she got it. When she fell and scraped her knee, we went inside, cleaned it up, put on a colorful bandage, and got right back out there. She needed to know that falling down wasn't the end of the world. We developed routines. Saturday mornings were pancake mornings. She'd help me mix the batter and we'd make them in weird shapes. Animals, letters, abstract blobs that we'd pretend were famous landmarks. The kitchen would be a disaster by the time we finished, but those were some of the best mornings. Sophie started opening up more during our weeks together. She'd tell me about school, about her friends, about the boy in her class who ate glue for attention. Normal kid stuff that I cherished because it meant she trusted me enough to share her world. Meanwhile, Victoria remarried Kevin about 6 months after our divorce was finalized. Didn't waste any time making it official once she didn't have to hide it anymore. They bought this house in an upscale neighborhood, the kind of place where everyone drives luxury vehicles and the HOA has opinions about mailbox styles. Kevin's one of those guys who thinks a finance degree and a decent salary makes him an expert on everything. He's got opinions on politics, sports, parenting, nutrition, real estate, cryptocurrency. You name it. He's got a take, and he's not shy about sharing those takes, loudly, to anyone within earshot. The first time I met him for a custody exchange, he tried to give me investing advice. I was picking up Sophie from Victoria's place, and this guy cornered me in the driveway to explain why I was leaving money on the table by not diversifying my portfolio into some tech stocks he'd been researching. "You know what your problem is?" he asked, not waiting for an answer. "You're playing it too safe. Real wealth comes from calculated risks." I just nodded and got Sophie in the car. Engaging with Kevin was like arguing with a motivational poster. Lots of bold statements, zero substance, and you'd never convince him he was wrong about anything. Sophie's relationship with Victoria started changing after the remarriage. At first, it was subtle things. Victoria would make comments about Sophie's clothes not being nice enough for certain outings. She'd suggest different hairstyles, different activities, different friends. Everything was about image management. Then came the food comments. Sophie mentioned it casually one day after I picked her up. We were driving home and she said Victoria had told her to watch what she eats because she was getting a little chunky around the middle. My kid was 10 years old. 10. She wasn't chunky. She was a normal, healthy child who sometimes wanted seconds at dinner or a cookie after school. I asked Sophie how that made her feel. She shrugged. That heartbreaking kid shrug that means they're trying really hard not to show how much something hurt them. I guess mom's right. I probably should eat less. That conversation lit something on fire in my chest. I wanted to drive straight back to Victoria's house and have some words, but I knew that wouldn't help Sophie. Instead, I told her she was perfect, exactly as she was, that her body was going to change as she got older, and that being healthy meant eating good food and being active, not starving herself. Your mom's wrong, I told her directly. You're not chunky. You're growing. That's what kids your age do. But the damage was seeping in. Sophie started asking if things were healthy before eating them. She'd hesitate before getting seconds. She started comparing herself to girls in her class, to models in magazines, to impossible standards that no 12-year-old should be measuring herself against. I tried countering Victoria's messages during our weeks together. We'd cook healthy meals, sure, but I'd also emphasize that food wasn't the enemy. We'd go for bike rides, play soccer in the park, go swimming at the community pool. Activity for fun, not punishment. I wanted Sophie to have a healthy relationship with her body, which meant not treating it like something that needed to be controlled and criticized. The incidents escalated over the next year. Victoria started buying Sophie clothes in smaller sizes, then acting surprised when they didn't fit right. Huh, I guess the sizing runs small, she'd say, while Sophie stood there feeling like her body had betrayed her. Kevin joined in with his finance bro wisdom about optimizing health and maximizing physical potential. He'd send Sophie articles about meal prep and workout routines designed for adults, completely ignoring that she was 11 years old and still playing with dolls. One week, Sophie came back from Victoria's place and barely ate anything for 2 days. When I finally got her to open up, she admitted Victoria had been taking her to weight loss meetings. Not kid-focused nutrition education, but actual weight loss support groups where adults talked about point systems and cheat days and how much they hated their bodies. My 11-year-old daughter sat in a room full of adults discussing weight loss strategies while Victoria smiled and nodded like this was completely normal parenting. I called Victoria that night after Sophie was asleep, kept my voice level, kept my anger in check, and told her in no uncertain terms that she needed to stop. Sophie was a healthy kid who didn't need weight loss anything. The food comments, the too small clothes, the weight meetings, all of it needed to stop immediately. Victoria acted like I was being dramatic. I'm teaching her healthy habits. You're just letting her eat whatever she wants because you feel guilty about the divorce. The guilty divorced dad card. Classic manipulation. She's 11, I said. She needs support, not criticism. She needs to feel good about herself, not like she's constantly falling short of some impossible standard. Maybe if you actually cared about her health instead of just being the fun parent, you'd understand what I'm doing. Victoria shot back. The conversation went nowhere. We just talked in circles until I realized I was wasting my breath. Victoria had convinced herself she was doing the right thing, and nothing I said would change that belief. I took Sophie to her pediatrician for her annual checkup that fall. Dr. Wilson had been her doctor since she was a baby, knew her medical history, and was great with kids. She did all the usual measurements, asked Sophie questions about school and activities, and then gave us the verdict. She's perfectly healthy, Dr. Wilson said, showing me the growth chart, right in the middle of the normal range for her age and height. Developing appropriately, good muscle tone, no concerns at all. I asked her to put that in writing, which she did. A formal letter stating that Sophie was at a healthy weight, required no dietary restrictions or weight loss interventions, and that such interventions could be harmful to her physical and mental development. I sent that letter to Victoria via email with a clear message. Medical professionals say our daughter is healthy. Stop trying to fix something that isn't broken. Victoria's response was 2 sentences. Doctors don't always know best. I'm her mother, and I know what's good for her. That's when I knew this was going to get worse before it got better. The months leading up to this past Christmas were increasingly tense. Sophie started showing signs of disordered eating, hiding food, skipping meals, exercising compulsively. She'd run laps around the backyard until she was exhausted, then feel guilty for not doing more. I found a journal in her room while looking for her library book. She'd asked me to find it. Wasn't snooping, but the page was open and I saw it, full of calculations about food she'd eaten, calories estimated, exercises to make up for eating too much. My 12-year-old daughter was tracking everything she ate like she was training for a bodybuilding competition. The entries mentioned Victoria constantly. Mom said I looked puffy today. Mom suggested I skip breakfast because I had pizza yesterday. Mom says Kevin knows a trainer who could help me. I took photos of those pages, not to violate Sophie's privacy, but because I knew I'd need evidence. This was beyond normal parenting differences. This was active harm. I called Helen, my divorce lawyer, explained what was happening, sent her the pediatrician's letter, shared photos of the journal entries, detailed every incident I could remember. She listened to everything, asked clarifying questions, and then gave me the reality check I needed. This is documented emotional harm, she said. But family court moves slow. We can file for an emergency custody modification, but you'll need more concrete evidence of immediate danger. What counts as immediate danger? I asked. Typically, physical abuse, neglect, substance issues. What you're describing is serious, but judges are reluctant to remove kids from a parent's custody without clear proof of imminent harm. So I waited, documented everything, kept copies of text messages, saved voicemails, took notes after every conversation with Sophie about what Victoria had said or done, built my case slowly and carefully. Then came Christmas. This year was Victoria's turn to have Sophie for Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. My turn was Christmas afternoon through the day after. I hated splitting holidays, but it was what the custody agreement mandated. I dropped Sophie off at Victoria's place on December 23rd evening. She had her overnight bag, her favorite stuffed animal, and she seemed excited about Christmas despite everything. Kids are resilient like that. They keep hoping things will be good, even when experience says otherwise. Have fun, kiddo, I told her at the door. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Love you, Dad, she said, giving me a hug. Victoria appeared in the doorway, all smiles for the neighbors who might be watching. We'll take good care of her. Merry Christmas, Jake. The fake warmth in her voice made my skin crawl, but I kept my expression neutral. Merry Christmas. Text me if you need anything, Sophie. I drove home to my quiet house, wrapped the presents I'd gotten Sophie, art supplies, books, a new bike helmet for the one she'd outgrown, a gift card to her favorite bookstore, and tried not to worry about what Victoria might do or say during their Christmas together. Christmas morning, my phone rang at 11 a.m. Sophie's number, but when I answered, all I could hear was crying. Sophie? Sweetheart, what's wrong? She couldn't speak through the sobs. Just those heartbroken sounds that every parent dreads hearing because you know your kid is truly hurting, and you can't immediately fix it. I need you to take some deep breaths for me, I said, keeping my voice calm while my heart was racing. Can you do that? Big breath in, big breath out. She tried. I could hear her struggling to control the crying. That's good. You're doing great. Now can you tell me what happened? Mom gave me... More crying. She gave me a gym membership for Christmas. My blood went cold. A gym membership? And diet books. And a scale. And she said... Sophie's voice broke completely. She said I'm getting chunky and it's time to take control before it gets worse. I was already grabbing my keys. I'm coming to get you right now. There's more, Sophie whispered. She said it in front of everyone. Grandma, Uncle Rick, Kevin's parents. Everyone was there and she just said it like it was normal. Kevin's voice in the background. Sophie, stop being dramatic. Your mother is trying to help you. Put your mom on the phone, I said, already in my car. She won't talk to you. She says I'm being ungrateful and ruining Christmas. I was driving, phone on speaker, trying to stay calm for Sophie's sake, while internally I was ready to explode. Listen to me very carefully. You did nothing wrong. Your mom is wrong. You are perfect exactly as you are. I'm 15 minutes away. Can you hold on for 15 minutes? Dad? Her voice was so small. Am I fat? That question, in that broken voice, from my 12-year-old daughter on Christmas morning. If I could have reached through the phone and hugged her, I would have. No. You are healthy and perfect and beautiful. Your mom is wrong. Do you hear me? She is wrong. I heard Victoria in the background now. Who is she talking to? Sophie, hang up the phone. We're not done discussing this. I have to go, Sophie whispered. Don't hang up. I'm almost there. The line went dead. I made that 15-minute drive in 10, not caring about speed limits or stop signs. Pulled into Victoria's circular driveway to find her standing on the front porch with Kevin, both of them looking annoyed rather than concerned. Sophie was visible through the front window, sitting on the couch with her face buried in her hands, while Victoria's mother awkwardly patted her shoulder. I got out of the car and headed for the door. Kevin stepped forward like he was going to block me. You need to leave, he said. This is our custody time. Get out of my way or I'll move you, I replied, not slowing down. Something in my expression must have convinced him I wasn't bluffing. He stepped aside and I walked past him into the house. Sophie saw me and ran. Just launched herself off that couch and ran straight into my arms, crying so hard she was shaking. I held her, this kid who was too old for me to carry anymore, but still young enough to need her dad, when the world felt like it was ending. We're leaving, I said to the room in general. Victoria found her voice. You can't just take her. It's my custody time. Watch me. I'll call the police. Please do. I'd love for them to see what you gave our daughter for Christmas. She hesitated. Kevin was standing in the doorway looking useless. Victoria's mother was still on the couch, and I noticed her looking at the pile of presents near the tree. The gym membership materials. The diet books. What looked like a food scale still in its box. This is ridiculous, Victoria said. I was trying to help her. She's been gaining weight, and I thought, she's 12, I cut her off. She's growing. That's what healthy kids do. And you just humiliated her in front of the entire family because you're obsessed with appearances. I'm her mother. I know what's best for her. No, I said firmly. You know what makes you look good to your social media followers. There's a difference. I looked at Sophie. Go get your stuff. We're going home. She pulled away and ran upstairs. Victoria started to follow, but I blocked her path. Don't, I said quietly. You've done enough. You're being completely unreasonable. I was teaching her healthy habits. You gave a 12-year-old girl a gym membership and diet books for Christmas and told her she's chunky in front of witnesses. If you think that's reasonable parenting, you need to take a hard look at yourself. Kevin decided to contribute his wisdom. Listen, man, I get you're upset, but Victoria has a point. Childhood weight issues lead to adult health problems. She's being proactive. She's being cruel, I replied. And if you can't see the difference, that explains a lot about your parenting judgment. Sophie came back down with her overnight bag. Her eyes were red and puffy from crying. She wouldn't even look at Victoria. Sophie, honey, please don't go, Victoria tried. I didn't mean to upset you. I was just trying to help you be your best self. Sophie walked right past her to me. That said everything. I took her hand and headed for the door. Victoria followed us out, still talking about how I was overreacting, how I was turning Sophie against her, how this was all a misunderstanding that was being blown out of proportion. I'll have my lawyer contact yours about modifying the custody arrangement, I said before getting in the car. You can't do that. The judge won't change custody because of one present. It's not one present. It's a pattern of behavior that's harming our daughter. And now I have witnesses who saw exactly what you did. I got Sophie in the car and drove away, watching Victoria in the rearview mirror standing in her perfect driveway in front of her perfect house, finally realizing she'd crossed a line she couldn't walk back from. Sophie cried the entire drive home. Not dramatic sobbing anymore, just quiet tears that somehow seemed worse. I reached over and held her hand, not saying anything, just being present. When we got home, I sat her down on the couch. I need you to tell me everything that happened this morning, every detail you can remember. She walked me through it, waking up excited for Christmas, going downstairs to find Victoria, Kevin, both sets of grandparents, and Victoria's brother Rick with his family, all gathered around the tree, opening presents while everyone watched. Sophie's gifts from Victoria, a 1-year gym membership to an expensive fitness center, 3 diet books including one called Thin by 13, a digital food scale, a meal planning journal, and a handwritten note. What did the note say? I asked. Sophie pulled it from her pocket. She'd kept it. The paper was wrinkled from being held in her fist, but the words were clear in Victoria's perfect handwriting. Sophie, you're at an age where you need to start thinking about your body and your health. I've noticed you're getting a little chunky around the middle, and I want to help you take control before it becomes a real problem. These tools will help you become the best version of yourself. Love, Mom. I read that note 3 times, feeling my anger build with each word. The casual cruelty of it, the body shaming disguised as concern, the implication that my daughter's worth was tied to her weight, all of it wrapped up in a Christmas present. What happened after you opened these? I asked. Everyone got really quiet, Sophie said. Then Mom started explaining that she'd researched the best gym for kids and found one with special programs for teens. She said now that I'm getting older, I need to start thinking about my appearance. Did anyone say anything? Grandma looked uncomfortable. Uncle Rick's wife said something about me being fine the way I am, but Mom just kept talking about how she wished someone had helped her when she was my age, and how she was doing this because she loves me. What did Kevin say? He agreed with Mom, said it was responsible parenting, said I'd thank her when I was older. Of course he did. I took photos of every gift, including the note. Then I called Helen, my lawyer, even though it was Christmas Day, left a detailed voicemail about what happened and said I needed to talk about emergency custody modification as soon as possible. Then I called Dr. Wilson's office and left a message with her answering service about needing a referral for counseling for Sophie. Sophie and I spent the rest of Christmas Day trying to salvage what we could. We made pancakes for lunch because she wanted comfort food. We watched movies. We played board games. I didn't mention Victoria or the presents again. Just tried to make my kid feel safe and loved. That evening, she asked, Dad, am I really chunky? I sat down next to her. Remember when we went to Dr. Wilson in November? Remember what she said? That I'm healthy. Exactly. You're healthy. Your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing at your age. You're growing, which means your body changes. That's normal. That's good. But mom says, your mom is wrong. She's projecting her own issues onto you, and that's not fair or right. You are perfect exactly as you are. Then why would she say those things? That's the question, isn't it? How do you explain to a 12-year-old that sometimes parents mess up in ways that hurt their kids? That sometimes people are so caught up in their own insecurities that they pass them on without realizing the damage they're causing? Sometimes people who weren't taught to love themselves have trouble teaching their kids to love themselves. I said carefully. Your mom has issues with her own body that have nothing to do with you. But that doesn't make it okay for her to put those issues on you. I don't want to go back there, Sophie said quietly. You don't have to. I'm going to make sure of that. The day after Christmas, I met with Helen in her office. She'd come in specifically for this meeting, which I appreciated. I showed her everything. The gifts, the note, the photos, Sophie's journal entries from previous months. Helen studied the note for a long time. This is exactly what we need, she said finally. Combined with the pediatrician's letter, the journal entries, and witness testimony about what happened Christmas morning, we have a strong case for emergency custody modification. How fast can we move on this? I'll file the emergency petition today. Given that it's the week between Christmas and New Year's, we might not get a hearing until next week, but we can request that your custody time be extended until the hearing. What are our chances? Good. Judges take this stuff seriously. Your ex-wife gave a healthy child weight loss materials and publicly criticized her body. That's documented emotional harm. We spent 2 hours going over strategy. Helen would file for emergency temporary custody, citing emotional abuse and harm to Sophie's mental health. We'd request full custody pending a psychological evaluation and family counseling. We'd gather witness statements from everyone present on Christmas morning. One more thing, Helen said. We need to document Sophie's current mental state. I want you to take her to a counselor immediately, not for long-term treatment yet, just for an initial assessment that we can use in court. I'd already made an appointment with a child psychologist Dr. Wilson had recommended. Sophie's first session was in 2 days. Meanwhile, Victoria was blowing up my phone. Text after text about how I'd overreacted, how she was just trying to help, how I was alienating Sophie from her. When texts didn't work, she started leaving voicemails that ranged from pleading to threatening. You can't just take her away from me. I'm her mother. You're being completely unreasonable. This is parental alienation. My lawyer says you're in violation of the custody agreement. Fine. If you want to do this the hard way, we'll do it the hard way. I saved every message, every text, every voicemail, every email. All of it was going into Helen's evidence file. Victoria's mother called too. Unlike her daughter, she seemed genuinely concerned rather than defensive. Jake, I need you to know that what Victoria did was wrong, she said. I tried to stop her from giving Sophie those gifts, but she wouldn't listen. She's convinced herself that she's helping. Did you see how upset Sophie was? Yes. It broke my heart. That's why I'm calling. If you need me to testify about what happened, I will. That surprised me. You'd testify against your own daughter? I'd testify for my granddaughter. There's a difference. I got her statement in writing. Victoria's mother described the Christmas morning scene in detail. Sophie's excited anticipation turning to confusion and then heartbreak. Victoria's tone-deaf explanations. Kevin's supportive comments. Sophie running upstairs crying while Victoria acted like everyone else was being overly sensitive. Rick, Victoria's brother, also reached out. We'd always gotten along okay, and he seemed genuinely disturbed by what he'd witnessed. That was messed up, man, he said when he called. I've got 3 daughters, and I can't imagine doing something like that to any of them. If you need me to tell the judge what I saw, I'm happy to do it. 2 family witnesses willing to testify against Victoria. That would carry weight with a judge. Sophie's first counseling session was on December 27th. Dr. Patricia Hayes specialized in adolescent mental health and had experience with family law cases. She met with Sophie alone first, then called me in afterward. Your daughter is showing clear signs of body image issues and disordered eating patterns, Dr. Hayes said bluntly. She's engaging in calorie restriction, excessive exercise, and negative self-talk about her appearance. She's also exhibiting anxiety and depression symptoms that seem directly linked to her mother's comments and behavior. How serious is it? It's not a crisis point yet, but it's heading in that direction. If left unchecked, this could develop into a full eating disorder. The good news is that she's aware enough to recognize the behavior isn't healthy, which gives us something to work with. What does she need? Regular counseling, obviously. But more importantly, she needs to be in an environment where she's not constantly receiving messages that her body is wrong or needs to be fixed. She needs stability, support, and positive reinforcement about her worth beyond her appearance. She has that with me. I know. She talks about you with obvious trust and affection, But she also talks about her mother with fear of disappointing her, which is a red flag. A child shouldn't be afraid to exist in their own body around a parent. Dr. Hayes wrote up her assessment for the court. It was damning. Words like emotional harm, parental-induced anxiety, and risk of developing eating disorder appeared throughout. She recommended Sophie remain in my primary custody and that Victoria complete parenting classes focused on appropriate child development expectations before resuming unsupervised visits. The emergency custody hearing was scheduled for January 3rd. Helen filed all our documentation: the gifts, the note, the pediatrician's letter, the counselor's assessment, witness statements from Victoria's mother and brother, and a detailed timeline of Victoria's escalating behavior over the past 2 years. Victoria hired a new lawyer since her divorce attorney didn't handle custody modifications. Some guy named Patrick who had a reputation for aggressive family law tactics. He immediately filed a counter motion claiming I was engaging in parental alienation and using Sophie as a weapon. Helen wasn't impressed. That's their only play. They can't defend what she did, so they're trying to make you the villain. New Year's came and went quietly. Sophie and I spent it at home, watching the ball drop on TV, making hopeful wishes for the year ahead. She seemed lighter somehow, like the weight of maintaining Victoria's impossible standards had been lifted. "I'm scared about court," she admitted as we cleaned up our makeshift party. "What are you scared of? That the judge will make me go back. That Mom will be mad at me. That everything will go back to how it was." I sat down next to her. "First, you're not going to court. The judge might want to talk to you privately, but you won't be in the courtroom with all the lawyers. Second, your mom being mad isn't your fault or your problem. You didn't do anything wrong. And third, things aren't going back to how they were. I promise you that." "How can you promise?" "Because I'm not going to stop fighting until you're safe. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. You're my priority. Not Victoria's feelings, not Kevin's opinions, not anyone else's judgment. You." She hugged me, and I realized that this was what parenting should be. Not trying to control your kid's appearance or mold them into some perfect image. Just being there, showing up, making them feel safe and valued for who they are. January 3rd arrived cold and gray. I dressed in my best suit, made sure I looked respectable and stable for the judge. Helen met me at the courthouse, looking confident with her massive legal binder full of evidence. Victoria showed up with Kevin and Patrick. She dressed carefully, conservative, maternal, the perfect image of a concerned mother. Kevin wore a suit that probably cost more than my car payment. Patrick carried his own binder, though I noticed it was significantly thinner than Helen's. The judge was Evelyn Pierce, a woman in her 60s known for no-nonsense rulings and low tolerance for parents who played games. Helen had mentioned she was a good draw for our case. Patrick went first, painting a picture of a devoted mother who'd made one mistake in judgment about an inappropriate gift. He claimed I was overreacting to an isolated incident, that Victoria had already apologized, and that removing Sophie from her mother's custody would cause more harm than good. Children need both parents, he argued. Mr. Anderson is using one poor choice on Christmas morning to punish his ex-wife and alienate his daughter from her mother. This is a classic case of parental alienation disguised as concern for the child's welfare. Then it was Helen's turn. She started with the Christmas note, reading it aloud in its entirety. Then she presented the pile of gifts, the gym membership, the diet books, the food scale. She showed the judge photos of Sophie's journal entries, calculating calories and planning exercises to compensate for eating. She presented Dr. Wilson's letter, stating Sophie was medically healthy and required no weight management interventions. She showed Dr. Hayes' assessment, detailing the psychological harm and risk of eating disorder. Then came the witness statements. Victoria's own mother testifying that she'd witnessed Victoria make inappropriate comments about Sophie's body for over a year, that the Christmas incident was the culmination of ongoing behavior, and that she'd personally tried to intervene multiple times without success. Rick's statement describing the Christmas morning scene and noting that Sophie had appeared visibly distressed while Victoria seemed oblivious to the emotional harm she was causing. My documentation of incidents over the past 2 years, the small clothes, the weight support meetings, the constant food policing, all of it carefully logged with dates and details. Judge Pierce listened to everything, asked some clarifying questions, and then asked to speak with Sophie privately. They were in chambers for about 30 minutes. When Sophie came out, she looked tired, but relieved. She sat next to me and grabbed my hand. Judge Pierce took another 15 minutes to review documents. The courtroom was silent except for the sound of pages turning. Victoria kept glancing at Patrick, who maintained his confident expression, even though I could tell he knew this wasn't going well. Finally, Judge Pierce looked up. I'm granting Mr. Anderson's petition for emergency temporary custody, she said. Ms. Victoria Bennett's behavior demonstrates a pattern of inappropriate body shaming and emotional harm toward a minor child. The Christmas incident was not an isolated poor judgment call. It was the escalation of ongoing problematic behavior. Victoria actually gasped. Kevin put his hand on her shoulder. Judge Pierce continued. Ms. Bennett will retain visitation rights, but those visits will be supervised until she completes a court-ordered parenting class focused on appropriate developmental expectations and healthy communication with children. She will also attend individual counseling to address her own body image issues that she is projecting onto her daughter. Your Honor, Patrick started. Judge Pierce cut him off. I'm not finished. Ms. Bennett is prohibited from making any comments about Sophie's appearance, weight, food choices, or body in any context. She is prohibited from giving Sophie any weight management materials, diet products, or fitness equipment. Violation of these terms will result in immediate suspension of visitation rights. She looked directly at Victoria. Ms. Bennett, I want to be very clear. Your daughter is a healthy child according to medical professionals. Your decision to treat her as if she has a weight problem is causing documented psychological harm. If you continue this behavior, you will lose custody entirely. Do you understand? Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face. Not tears of remorse, I noted. Tears of anger and humiliation at being called out publicly. Mr. Anderson will maintain primary physical custody, pending a full custody evaluation in 6 months. At that time, we'll reassess whether Ms. Bennett has made sufficient progress to resume shared custody. This court is adjourned. Helen packed up her materials, looking satisfied. Victoria was crying while Patrick talked to her in low tones. Kevin looked stunned, probably realizing that his finance bro wisdom wasn't going to fix this situation. I took Sophie's hand, and we walked out of that courtroom into a future that finally felt stable. The next few months were about healing and rebuilding. Sophie continued counseling with Dr. Hayes, working through the body image issues Victoria had created. She started eating normally again, stopped the compulsive exercising, threw away the journal where she'd been tracking calories. Victoria's supervised visits were awkward at first. A court-appointed supervisor would sit in the room while Victoria and Sophie spent their 2 hours together. Victoria struggled to find things to talk about that didn't involve appearance or achievement. Turns out when you've spent years reducing your relationship with your kid to criticism and appearance management, you don't actually know how to just be with them. Kevin stopped coming to the supervised visits after the first month. Guess he wasn't as invested in the parenting thing when it required actual work, instead of just offering unsolicited opinions. Victoria completed her court-ordered parenting class in March. The instructor's report noted that Victoria had significant resistance to accepting that her behavior was harmful, but had demonstrated basic understanding of appropriate developmental expectations for adolescents. Not exactly a glowing review, but enough to satisfy the court's requirements. By June, Sophie had regained her confidence. She joined an art club at school, made friends with kids who liked her for her personality rather than judging her appearance, and started talking about what she wanted to be when she grew up. Normal 12-year-old stuff that she should have been doing all along instead of worrying about her body. The 6-month custody evaluation came in July. Court-appointed psychologist interviewed everyone, observed interactions, reviewed all the documentation from the past half year. His conclusion was clear. Sophie was thriving in my primary custody, showed significant improvement in mental health, and expressed clear preference to remain in her current arrangement. Victoria's sessions with Sophie had improved somewhat. She'd learned to avoid appearance-based topics and was making efforts to connect with Sophie over shared interests. But the trust was damaged, possibly permanently. The final custody order gave me primary physical custody, with Victoria getting supervised visits every other weekend. She could apply for modification after another year if she continued counseling and demonstrated sustained appropriate behavior. Victoria didn't fight the ruling. Maybe she finally understood the damage she'd caused. Maybe her lawyer advised her that fighting would only make things worse. Either way, she signed off on the custody order without filing an appeal. Last week, Sophie and I were making pancakes, our Saturday morning tradition, when she said something that made all of this worthwhile. Dad, thank you for protecting me. Always, kiddo. That's my job. I know Mom's trying to be better, she said carefully. But I'm glad I live with you. Me too, she smiled, flipping a pancake that was definitely not going to land right. This one's supposed to be an elephant, but it looks more like a blob. That's modern art. Very abstract. We finished making breakfast. The kitchen a disaster as always. Both of us laughing over pancakes that looked nothing like the animals they were supposed to be. Normal Saturday morning. Normal life. That's what Sophie deserved all along. Just to be a normal kid, loved and valued for who she was, not judged for what she looked like, or measured against impossible standards. And now she had it. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.